Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers. It's a podcast where a group of friends get together and share music with each other on a weekly basis. We take turns sharing an album, and then the rest of the guys tell the person what they think. Let's get down to it. I'm Peter Rave, your man with no plan. Here with me is my crew, my team, my squad, my quorum, my gathering of the breakalos.
The fuck you talking about, Peter?
I don't know. I should
fucking magnets.
It's that Michael Scott quote. You know, sometimes I just start a sentence and I'm not knowing where it's going to go. I just hope I find my way at the end. Here with me is my team. We've got Brett.
Kind of like Paul Harvey.
Drew.
Hey.
And Patrick.
We haven't even started, and I can hear the condescension in Drew and Brett's voice about my choice of album.
I just said it's like Paul Harvey, and I'm condescending.
The reason I took a long time between saying nothing and saying hey, because my mind was trying to find a Steve Harvey joke, and I couldn't do it. And I gave up on myself.
Yeah. You need to have a good Steve Harvey joke. If you're going to pull a Steve Harvey, no, I don't know. That's difficult. You'd have to just have. You just need to mug. I don't have a saxophone near enough to me to pull a Steve Harvey joke.
No Steve Harvey jokes. I mean,
wow. Throwback to the sitcom that he did.
Unfortunately, there's no spot. There wouldn't be any spots for any Stephen A. Smith jokes either. So, because we could just sit here going,
he makes them all about himself anyway.
All right, we're here to talk about music. The provider of the album this week. Let's get down to it. Let's get serious business. Is Patrick. Patrick, what do you have for us this week?
A band that I feel is unfairly maligned for coming to prominence at the same time as nu metal, but having none of the traits of nu metal other than, being a vaguely metal band from the late 90s. System of a Down and their album Mezmerize.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about expectations, because this is gonna be interesting. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I never listened to any System of a Down on purpose, but that means nothing really, because I heard a whole lot of System of a Down because I was around when it occurred, and it was something that you couldn't really get away from, especially being a white person in the Midwest. But I never really had any desire to have more of that in my life. So I came in not really. I think I recognized one song off of this album, maybe a song and a half. So I didn't really know what else I was going to get.
Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, I would say that this one was a wake up, but it's not. I was, yep, there you go. Shake your head.
Not even a good one of those, Drew. It's not even a good one of those.
Nope, but I got the reaction that I wanted, which was Patrick being unhappy. Just all about
because that's what he did to you?
No, I was familiar with System of a Down. Me and my sister were into metal when we were kids. I mostly was into metal because I was like, oh, this music is weird. And like that was around. Like the older sibling listens to something weird and then you like pick up on it and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Sort of into metal. And then I fell away from this band very quickly as I sort of found other genres that I was into and started liking more like the punk rock side of things and ska side of things. So I hadn't really gone back into what they were. And every time that I did hear them, it was sort of what it was. So I had no expectations for this record.
Wait, what? How old were you when this album came out?
2001. So
This album's 2005.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh wait,
I was 20.
Let me get my abacus out, count
22,
my age.
17.
Going on 23.
Like, okay.
He was only 17.
You were old enough to know better. If you murdered someone,
enough
we
to
would
do
have
it
probably
anyway?
locked you up for life.
Oh, wait, that's a different album. Old enough to know better, young enough to do it anyway.
Yes.
How about that for a throwback? Yeah. I was 22, going on 23, when this album came out. Yeah, I think I didn't know what to expect on the full breadth of this album, but I kind of had an idea. I've enjoyed System of a Down. I still enjoy System of a Down. Their previous albums, I've sung System of a Down in karaoke a couple of times. Mostly the one Calmer song on a previous album. But
Ariel?
I've sung, yeah, basically. Yeah, the one calm song. But I've sung them in karaoke and I've joined it. So I had some expectations of enjoying this album. But we'll see. We'll talk about it. Patrick, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes elements that make it up?
So System of a Down, they're a weird metal band from the late 90s that don't have a DJ and don't rap. It's sort of weird modern metal. Brett will probably refer to it as butt rock. Probably. There's like an 80% chance, but
I will do a search on my page. I don't believe I used the word butt rock once. I did not.
Wow.
Butt rock.
it isn't really butt.
And I've
It's just butt.
They're, a metal band, but they always were willing to mix in some weird genre things. There's definitely a song on this album that has a polka part for no fucking reason, and that's why it's fun. But this is sort of Toxicity's the obvious one, 2001 album that sold a bajillion copies. But this album was always the one that stuck with me because it's a little bit shorter. It's really tight and it gets weird and it goes places. And it's a lot different because Darren Malakian, the guitar player, is kind of the primary writer on it, whereas Serge primarily wrote the earlier stuff. And it's kind of a weird album, and I've always liked it. I literally remember hearing the single BYOB on the radio freshman year of college and being like, wow, this is fun. I miss System of a Down. I need this album. And I think I physically bought it, 12 years ago in college. It's a band who was later in their career trying a different sound and trying to, kind of find some new things on what they did. But also, obviously, it's super political. That is a thing they've always done. They're the reason why, weirdly, people in their 30s know what the Armenian genocide is because they were, talking about it, 15 years ago.
I will have you know, they never taught me once about the Armenian genocide.
But they're a band who has opinions and does stuff. They're very political. And this album, because it's 2005, gets very the same place a lot of punk and metal records from this era got, and it gets real political. And I would go out on a limb and say these guys don't like George Bush, just thematically.
No.
Yeah, that shocks me.
But this album solved everything. We're totally not still at war 3 administrations later.
Yeah. Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
I don't know. It's odd. It's the album. Yes, it's of the era when it was, no war for oil. We were fresh in our not wanting to blow people up in the desert. But it is very much of the time as well. It's sort of mixed in a weird way. I heard that I was listening on the Spotify version, and it's old enough that like I didn't expect it to sound. The mix is kind of weird. The both of the vocals are almost at the same level as one another, and it's sort of weird cutting through the mix. There's a lot of weird tempo changes and a lot of vocal affectation as well. It's not exactly, it does not fit the mold of what it was being sold to people as, because I agree this is not your run of the mill butt rock that they were roped in with, but it is definitely catering to similar people that would be into such things as, it's like it caters to the, I want to listen to like a Rage Against the Machine type, like biting staccato voiced, protest rock, but I need a whole lot more like weird interstitial things and a bit weirder vocals, and like it does have a dash of butt rock, I guess you could say, in the sound of some of the drums that aren't necessarily anywhere near butt rock drums, except for in a few points. But the guitar is definitely of the era. Like it's what you expect from what was being played on the radio. It is certainly the album that they got to make after they made a bunch of money off of the other album. So you get some of that, which is always fun. The album that they're not really worried about feeding their families for the rest of their life, so they can do things a little differently. And they had good intentions coming in, I'm sure.
Drew, what would be the themes elements that catch your attention? How would you describe the song musically?
Well, as I sort of said, I came into this record knowing my distaste for like the inflections that Serge does, the almost parody of himself he can become at times. So I came into this album knowing that I was going to look past that and find the better, because there is better in System of a Down. And that's the thing, is that I think their musicianship is really cool and inventive. There is cool music to be had. Like Pat said, there's like weird parts that throw in like inspirations from polka. Like there's not many metal bands that do that. And agree or disagree with their politics, the fact that they were doing it in metal at a time when metal was, as everyone here has said, not exactly one to like dive into anything deep or heady or important.
Hey, the bodies have to hit the floor.
Yes, the bodies.
Let them. God damn it, just let them.
Yes.
The bodies were hitting floors, and
I'm like a chainsaw.
What?
I'll skin your ass raw.
What? Stone Cold Steve Austin. But that to me is the thing about System of a Down. I think they're a really inventive group, and they have some fun parts, and that's kind of what this record was. The fact that they let Serge play off, and it was like a 50-50 split almost, that there was parts where like Serge didn't do the Serge thing, that he let himself go down. I think they played it really smart, because in essence they're all really smart musicians, and that's what's great about System of a Down, is they're smart musicians. They know how to compose music. They know how to produce a great sounding record and to put all of the pieces right where they need them to be. What I would say about this record is that letting Serge sort of take a back seat kind of made me like it more than what I remember liking of Toxicity, which was the one that my sister always played all the time, right? And that I got into because I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be like the cool kids. So like from yeah, I know how weird that sounds now. Yeah.
High school was weird.
Yeah.
I wanted to be one of the cool kids, so I joined the ska band. See how that weird timeline happened? Don't understand it either, Brett. Maybe. But that to me is what System of a Down is. there is some cool ass music in this record, and there are some cool ass influences that we will get into. There's no sprawling instruments, but there's sprawling composition.
Yeah,
and I can dig that to a point.
yeah. I think the polka. I think the elements of like their Middle Eastern influence are what's really cool. Like off of that part, like for obvious reasons, like the fact that they're all the kind of a combo of Armenian, well, mostly Armenian descent, and from different countries of that diaspora as well, and adjacent as well. But that they pull from that, and it sounds really cool. And I think the album it's has a high energy and has and makes it work well. Like it's like high, it's like just going crazy, but it makes in a focused way that I think works really well. And it's just a cool, fun listen. And I've always thought about them just off of all of the records, off of a bunch of their songs. And I think this exemplifies it in a lot of different ways, especially kind of as you dive into some of the songs that really highlight it. Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks to zero in on?
Record Breakers Thing, BYOB, the first single, the opening track minus the intro. It is the guitars are super, super cool. It's not the most complicated thing. It is one of those, it's fast but not super complicated guitar lines, but it sounds cool. And this was sort of the tail end of metal still being a thing you could hear on the radio regularly. And it was pretty heavy for that era, minus like bands like Slipknot who were doing
also played on the
shit.
radio all the time.
Yeah. I've never heard Slipknot on the radio once, but I also lived in a small town with shitty radio.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's not.
Wow, I thought I was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, never once. But like this is a very System of a Down kind of song for me. It has that whole weird lyrically it's both oblique but also kind of directly to the goddamn point, and it just works. It's a System of a Down song.
So the answer is because the executive branch and the military branch are supposed to be separate, and because that's who volunteers. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Violent Pornography, a song with a hell of a title, but it's so good. It's a really, really good example of why Serge shouldn't be the only vocalist in this band, and why adding more of Darren's vocals as they've gone through their career, sort of culminating here, really helps, because it's got weird vocal harmonies. It's got a really, really good chorus on it, and it's a really good example of what a boss John Dolmian, the drummer, is. He is really underrated for this era, I think, because a lot of the other guys at this time are running on kick drums, and that's just not a thing he ever did. But his drum stuff is not the most complicated. It is not the most technical, but it's really cool, and he does interesting things that other guys don't in the genre. I think, again, because this is a band that influences are a little more diverse than I think their peers were. Old School Hollywood, because it's silly. If you ever wanted to hear a song about, playing in a charity baseball game with, Tony Danza and Frankie Avalon, here you go. Apparently Tony Danza is a bit of a dick. But it's just weird and like a total, if all you've ever heard is System of a Down singles, they don't ever have a sense of humor, and that song does. And then the last track, Lost in Hollywood, because I don't know, I'm a sucker for a ballad at the end of a metal record. And it's Darren Malakian vocals, but it's a song that just is just enjoyable. It is a song that rewards you for listening to this album altogether. It's a nice way to close it. It finishes things up nicely, and it does something different than most of the rest of the record.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Do you think the B-52s would be better if it were 3 Fred Schneiders? I wonder. BYOB, that's the song I recognized. And yeah, it's that one as a shithead. Well, I was out of high school by the time this song was out, but like, largely ages not so well, but it, and also as Petey said, we live in a nation of an all-volunteer army. Now, if we were in the 1960s where people were being like, hey, guess what? You get to go, then maybe a little different. But as it goes, I can see why they chose this as their lead single. It does sort of have you are going to get what you come to expect. Very, it is almost at times a parody of itself. I mean, System of a Down has like there aren't 2 bands that sound like System of a Down. That is from the get-go. You understand that there's going to be some of that. I read on the Wikipedia page that Kirk Hammett of Metallica fame named this album the 11th best of the decade, and the song "Violent Pornography" as the 16th best song.
Yeah.
So Kirk Hammett, the authority on music. Let me tell you, my opinion on him is so high.
What?
He says there are only 15 songs from the decade that are better than that. So, also,
yeah.
there were some interesting bits. Like they made a poppy hook. It's very, very poppy in how it is written. Even the way that like the progression of the chorus goes up and it goes up and it goes up and then it resolves. And in the way that if you took out any of the rock and roll of it and you took all the lyrical content and just put in somebody like, scatting or mouth noising, it would still be the same function because that's how sound works. So somebody knew what they were doing with that. And old school Hollywood, I'll go ahead and bring that up because it's odd. It is noteworthy. It is a key track, one could say. They use a synthesizer in a way that if there were no use of synthesizer, you would have a completely different song. Also, they have a bridge in the song that they pull a play from the Bad Religion songwriting book. Which it only happens for the bridge. Like they just dangle that in front of me for a little while, and then they do their thing. But it was hardly similar to anything else that I have ever heard on this show. But those like the songs have there are separations. You don't have to worry about running it from one song to the next on this album. They all sort of hang on their own merits and don't roll into one another. So there are definitely like a lot of things you can pull because there's a lot of stuff that happens, but those were the things that stuck with me.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
BYOB. We've all talked about it. We're probably all going to talk about it for a reason. It's the single for a reason. It is System of a Down as hell. This song, like you can close your eyes and see Serge like bugging out with his eyes and like doing side head things. It is a bit chop suey part 2 at parts. Frantic verses to sort of driving beat in the chorus. Cigaro.
My favorite wrestler of all time.
Cigaro.
Yeah.
It is the one that like, yeah, there are a lot of politics, but this is like the most blatantly like finger pointery System of a Down like politicky song on this. The surgeness that I complain about is in full effect in the chorus, but somehow I didn't completely hate the chorus, and the guitar licks about halfway through were really, really dope. Like I would go to say that this is probably my favorite song on the record. And then Lost in Hollywood. That I never dug System of a Down going slow. I don't know why that is. So like ending it on slow was not the best choice for me personally. So it's like whatever. That song sort of was like you could have ended on a higher note for me. But.
I think those. I didn't mind it, but yeah, it's kind of like but you almost like when you listen to the album, it's like this is a nice like wind down, but you kind of aren't really inspired to keep listening to the end of it. You almost like it's like all right, the record's over already. You know, the album's over already, and just like, all right, I'm gonna go listen to. I think I've had a couple of times where I was like, I needed to bounce to the other to another album that we're reviewing, and I'm like, all right, album's over, and it's in the middle of Lost in Hollywood. I kind of just like, I'm okay stopping now and just moving on to that other record so I can start that. It kind of does have that effect, even though it's not necessarily a bad song. Especially, I will also reiterate the Cigaro is just the right kind of frenetic, the right kind of fun, like with the hook that works really well. I also enjoy Question. Question is a song that I'm pretty sure I've at least listened to. You know, it's another single off the album, and I'm pretty sure I've sung in karaoke if it's available. Possibly. It's been a while since I've been back in karaoke, but yeah, some good tracks. Let's bring it back around the horn. Talk about some conclusive thoughts. Let's conclude all of this album. Brett, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album as a whole?
As a whole, to quote Mr. Horse, no sir, I don't like it, but that's fine. It's all right. I mostly just being around when it happened and being in the milieu of Midwestern rural white people listening to all kinds of whatever the radio tells them to listen to. Like I had my prejudices, but I pushed them as far away as I could, and I was like, I'm gonna review this album as an adult, and I also didn't like it as an adult. So at least I've done my work. I've convinced myself that my opinion is still valid, but that doesn't mean that it's not a well executed album, or it's not terrible. It's not the worst thing we've listened to by far. And it almost inspired people to have like the worst album off, which is the worst way to make a show.
Yes,
but it's not even like the top five, bottom five worst. So it's okay. I wonder what these kids are going to do in their next future endeavors. I want to hear Fred SNYDER and Serge do like some duets together. But go listen to it if you haven't. If you weren't there when it happened, if you're a child, you're going to talk to the wrong people. But it's okay. Give it a listen. Make your own opinions. Mm-hmm. Don't listen to our horse apple opinions. Make your own.
Yes. Drew, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
Well, I went into this not liking a certain thing about System of a Down and wanting to dive in and pick apart the other parts of System of a Down. And you know what? The other parts of System of a Down are pretty cool. The musicianship is there. The composition is there. I think there's some interesting stuff going on with the inspirations they take from other places, the things that they meld into their music, whether it be the Armenian background, whether it be the polka background, the weird ragtime. There's some weird stuff going on in System of a Down records, and that's kind of cool. And it's for that alone, I think they're worth the praise that they get from some folks. Again, not my cup of tea every day, not the thing that I'm going to go to when I search out some metal, but something that I know that there is definitely a split. There are some people that love Surge, and there are people like me, and that's okay. But the rest of System, I will say, as a whole, System of a Down is great. It's just the one thing for me that's like nails on the chalkboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a System of a Down is a band that I've enjoyed for how their songs have been fantastic. I've enjoyed just jamming around to them. I've enjoyed singing System of a Down karaoke. And this album exemplifies, I think, a lot of what works for them. Obviously, there's the other albums that one could more easily assume would be the albums to listen to, but I think this one has a nice growth. This has a nice growth, being past those breakthrough albums. There's a nice growth in their musicianship and a nice progression in their sound and a balance in their creative efforts, which is really cool. So they're definitely, I can see why this one would be a nice one to kind of key in on. That's for sure. Patrick, what would be your conclusion on this album?
I think System of a Down has the same problem that Tool does, and that a lot of popular metal bands do, is that metal fans as a whole are full of dumb chuds who kind of ruin it for everyone else. And I think
leave chuds out of this. They never. They're just dwelling underground.
Not to be confused with chads.
Chads are completely different, but
or Juds.
Yeah, wow.
Yes. Why Nona?
Don't bring the Juds in this. They're
the Juds and the Chuds. They're not Chads, and they're not.
I think
Juds are doing the Juds are sitting there minding their own business, trying to live the best life they can.
I don't know what Elio Castroneves has been telling people, but all right, never mind.
Okay, moving on.
You can finish.
I'm gonna let you finish.
I think they're a better band than a lot of people who haven't ever delved into them might think. They're very atypical of their era. They're kind of a little bit genreless in that they're metal plus a whole lot of weird. And they're just I like that I like weird politically driven music sometimes. It's a thing, Yeah. I like Rage Against the Machine. I think, have we done Dead Kennedys? I feel like Brett's Dead Kennedys.
We have.
It's very much in that milieu in terms of being very often songs are about something serious, and even if they're weird. Mm-hmm. But it's I also think this album is better than people remember, although it was very, very successful when it came out. It's technically half of a double album, but the second half of said double album isn't good. Yeah. So I stuck with this part. But yeah, go listen to it. It's only 36 minutes. It's not, it won't kill you. Go listen to it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, go and listen to it. Part of your homework anyway. You should have already done so. Sitting there not doing your homework. Yeah. Those are our thoughts on the System of a Down, Mezmerize. Let's get into our haiku reviews. The main event of the evening, what we've all been waiting for. Why we're all here. Not about all that other stuff. It's about doing these dumb haikus.
See, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah, sure.
I don't have a pair of sunglasses handy.
I'm just here for the drinks and the cozies, and random trend kite cozies. We are here to do the haikus. Let's start with Brett. Brett, what is your haiku?
What do you expect? A little over singy. I like Transformers.
Drew, what is your haiku?
But what about the Beast Wars? Did not change my mind. And while I can understand, not my cup of tea.
I'll tell you, Optimus Primal is my bro.
Yeah. My haiku. Not for everyone, but their frenetic sound is engaging and fun. Patrick, what is your haiku?
Unique metal sound, underappreciated, a band that I miss.
Of course. All right. Those are our thoughts on Mezmerize. You can, of course, find it on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Listen along at home. Do the proper homework. Follow along for this book club for music that we're doing here. On that Spotify playlist is going to be next week's record and is provided by Brett. Brett, what do you got for us next week?
I'm following in the butt rock music genre. No, we're having a palate cleanser, the whole body
We
cleanser.
doing a rockin' with the rhythm?
We're going to listen to the Ben Folds 5 and their album Whatever and Ever Amen.
With the piano and such. And
the fives.
Yeah.
All five of them.
Yes.
Yes, all 5 of them.
Minus 2.
Thought we were going to bury that lead, but
but yeah, look forward to that next week. But that is next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. Patrick is at Swagger. Brett is at Hibbity Burbert, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at X4X. I'm at PD Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube and other places wherever I set myself up. Subscribe, like, share. Find us where you can find podcasts on Pocket Casts, on all your other podcast catchers of note. I think possibly. I don't know. If we're not somewhere, we'll let us know and we'll try to make ourselves be there. But that's it. Until next time. And now you know the rest of the story. Hasta los.
Good day.